All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
There's got to be a morning after, if we can hold on through the night. We have a chance to find the sunshine. Let's keep on looking for the light. Oh, can't you see the morning after?
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're still coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario. And you're listening to us on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and around the world on classic1220.ca. In this hour, X Zone Nation, my guest is Karin Wilkinson. We're going to be speaking to Karin about her book entitled Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. She is a UFO abductee, survivor, and researcher, and her website is KarinWilkinsonAuthor.com. And joining me now is Karin Wilkinson. Karin, welcome to the X Zone.
Hi, Rob. Thank you. I am so happy to be here with you tonight.
Well, it's great having you with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what led up to your book, Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest.
Sure. Thank you. I have experienced what some might call a classic non-human abduction scenario my entire life. From as young as I can remember, I was being taken. And it was just such a hard thing to deal with. And I had a near-death experience where that was also a very scary experience, and I went through some PTSD therapy to deal with that. And in doing that therapy, it also helped me deal with this lifetime of just terrible experiences with these entities. And once I had done that, I was able to really start processing it, and decided to share my account with a good friend, L.A. Marzulli. And so I shared that with him, and it became sort of the tentpole for his fourth movie in the UFO Disclosure series on UFO abductions. So that's where it started. Something I never thought I would do. You know, Rob, these are not the kind of things people want to hear about. Not the type of thing that's easy to talk about. That's for sure.
Well, first of all, I applaud you for coming out and sharing this information, not only with LA, but with the world, because I believe there are many people out there who have had these experiences or experienced like these, but because of the social stigma attached to it, or people attach a woo-woo factor in it, they just keep it to themselves. And I believe that by keeping these experiences to themselves, they're doing more harm than good to themselves. And they should share this information so that other people will know that they're not alone, and they too will come forward and get help.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And yeah, while it was terrifying and very difficult at first to share this, and it still is, but it's getting a little easier as I go along, I really felt led to do it. And once I shared with LA and that movie came out, I started hearing from people, meeting people, and talking to people who were in very similar circumstances, who were in almost identical circumstances. And they just wanted someone to talk to about it.
Yeah.
They wanted someone who wasn't going to think they were crazy. I mean, I never expected LA to be as receptive and responsive to me when I was speaking with him. And that was just such a weight lifted off of me to know that someone actually listened to me and didn't call me crazy, but understood that what I was saying was the truth. And he could tell I was telling the truth. And then to meet all these other people with the same situation, I thought I need to take this a step further, to share this in another way. And that's when I really felt led to write, and I just wrote the truth. I wrote what happened, and as a way to kind of help start that conversation, to make it, to kind of try to remove some of that stigma and make it okay, to let people know they're not
Hmm.
alone, that this really is happening, and it's happening to so many people.
Can you share with our listening audience what type of um, experiences you've had with these entities, and how it started, and what a typical encounter was like for you?
Absolutely. From as young as I can remember, I was being taken. My earliest memories are of waking up at night terrified because these entities, these bulbous head, typical, what people typically describe as gray
Hmm.
alien entities with the bulbous heads, the big screen looking vacuous black eyes, this thin spindly bodies, just they exuded just evil. I mean, they were scary. I was so scared as a little kid, and they would show up night after night so often when I was little, and sometimes at the foot of the bed, sometimes beside the bed, sometimes out the window, looking in. And I would try to find ways to hide when I was little. I thought if
Right.
I could get a suitcase and put it under the bed and get in it and zip it up, maybe they couldn't find me. They always found me. There was just no way to hide, and I felt helpless, and I felt like there was nothing I could do. I just had to kind of give
Hmm.
in to it. And so, in a typical abduction scenario for me was that I would be put into what's commonly referred to as sleep paralysis state, where I was fully aware, but I couldn't move, I couldn't respond or react. And at that point, sometimes I would just be switched off, like to sleep almost,
Wow.
but not every time. That point, when I was awake, the ones that I remember, I would be levitated off of a bed, like something out of a scary movie, and up through a ceiling or out a closed window, which, sounds just beyond possible, but
Hmm.
they're dealing with physics and science and understanding that we don't have. We're dealing with entities that are so far advanced from us. And so at that point, eh, would just feel this almost vibration kind of feeling in my body, like I was going into a million pieces when I'd go up through a ceiling or out a window. It's like my whole body changed at that point. And this is happening over and over again. So it's not like a one off thing where that could have been, just a random dream or something. These
Right.
weren't dreams, they were very real. Sometimes I would, wet the bed because I was so scared as soon as they
Hmm.
showed up. That happened a lot. Or I'd be brought back, my pajamas would be inside out. I'd come back with marks on my body. But back to the process, that sometimes there would be a light that I would see myself going into a light, kind of just very bright, um, very direct. Um, I don't remember there always being a light though. And Then I would usually be switched off, kind of put to sleep at that point, and wake up on a table. Typically, when I was little, I'd wake up sometimes on a table being examined. And they would do all kinds of invasive examinations. Some things with needles, and I don't know what they were taking from my body or
Hmm.
putting into my body with the needles. Some things looked like big X-ray type machines, but I didn't know what they were. A, I was just a little kid, and B, they weren't explaining what they were doing to me. They didn't care if what I was feeling, obviously. And sometimes I would be sitting. They would have me in a room with other little children, um, like sitting it on the table with weird shaped blocks sometimes, and there were coloring books too, which was odd. Coloring books and crayons and things, and very odd shaped blocks, some weird toys, not like the toys we had in school. And it wasn't desks like we had at school, it was just big tables with little chairs around them.
Hmm.
And some of the kids weren't normal, and some were. most of us were scared or just not very responsive. And typically at that point, they would do what they wanted for that particular abduction, and then I would wake up back in my bed, tired, thirsty, confused, scared, all the things you can imagine as a little kid. And this just went on and on throughout my life. Obviously, the things that they did changed as I got older, but that's a typical scenario that I would go through.
When you returned back to your home and you woke up in your bed, did you go to your parents? And if you did, how did your parents react to the horrible situation that you were describing to them?
Sure. Yeah, I would often go into their room, and they would not be happy that I was waking them up. So I learned to just crawl under their bed to sleep. And when I did try to talk to them about what was happening, I didn't have the right words to tell them. As a small child, I didn't have great communication skills. Plus, I didn't know what these things were. And they thought I was just having bad dreams, or making things up.
But you would come home and you would have marks on your body. Your pajamas would be inside out. Didn't that raise concern with your parents? I know that if any of my children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren came to see me, and they told me about a dream that I thought they were having, and they would say, "No, Papa, look," and showed me marks, I would be very concerned.
Sure. Yeah. No, the funny thing is I was trying to explain to them what was happening, and didn't, back then we didn't have UFO movies. I didn't know what these things were. I didn't know how to describe them. I kept saying the little ones kept coming to get me. They were touching me. They were bothering me. And, my mom thought maybe it was something at school because they found me in school. I was like kindergarten. They found me in the corner of a bathroom stall, just huddled up, rocking, holding my knees. And, I kind of just had a breakdown. I couldn't take it anymore. It was just too much. And I tried to explain what was happening, and they just thought it was maybe other kids. So they took me to the doctor, and the doctor examined me, and I had some, bruises, and I had a weird burn mark on my back, which nobody could explain, but they didn't, they weren't looking for something from a supernatural realm, and I couldn't explain how that got there. And he said that whatever happened, I was little, and physically I was fine, and I would forget it, I wouldn't remember as I grew up, and just to take me home and I would be fine. And I just kind of gave up trying to explain it.
Karen, I've got to take that break here, but I can tell that this is affecting you, and I just want you to take a little bit of a breather, and we'll be back on the other side of this break, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, Exonation Karin Wilkinson is my guest, KarinWilkinsonAuthor.com. She's the author of Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. She's a UFO abductee, survivor, and researcher. And we'll be back on the other side of this break as the X-Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, on your hometown classic, Classic 1220. And we're streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. We'll be back. Don't go away.
Through the night, we have a chance to find the sunshine. Let's keep...
And when I see the sign that points one way, the light we used to pass by every day. Just walk away, Renee. You wanna
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. And the X Zone radio show is here on Classic 1220, Monday through Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight. My guest this hour is Karin Wilkinson, and she's the author of a book that comes from her heart. It's based on her personal experiences, and she believes that it is very important that this message gets out there to people who may have had similar experiences, to let them know that they are not alone. The name of the book is Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest, and Karin is a UFO abductee survivor and researcher, and her website is KarinWilkinsonAuthor.com. Karin, before we went to the break, I could tell that this is a very emotional story for you.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you, Rob. It's, because it's been a lifetime of trying to figure out how to deal with this and put this in one place and then have a normal life outside of what's happened and what was happening. So it definitely it goes outside of, there's no one to go talk to about this. There aren't, it's not something that anyone ever talked about growing up. And I was told by these entities as well to stop talking, to stop trying to talk to the teachers at school or my parents or my friends or anyone else. They were not happy that I was trying to get help, that I was trying to tell people what was happening, and they threatened me to get me to stop talking about it.
Now, previously you said that this may have been something to do with a supernatural realm. Now, are we talking about the supernatural realm, or are we talking about ETs here, or are they one and the same?
Yes, I believe that they are one and the same. I really believe that what we're dealing with are entities that are able to exist in our realm and in other realms. We're dealing with entities that are far more advanced than we are, that have been here a lot longer than we have, that have abilities and understandings of physics and technology and things that we haven't even begun to understand, and that have probably helped our humanity and society along the way with a lot of the advancements that we have seen in the last 100 years or so.
Now, when you're abducted, how do they communicate with you? Is it a thought transference? Is it telepathy? Do they verbally speak that you can actually hear them? How is the communication done?
Generally, it was through basically like a telepathy, a thought thing. They, could hear them speaking to me in my mind, and sometimes I would verbally speak back, and sometimes I would just think back what I wanted to say. When I was taken, there were different types of entities, and there were humans there too. But I never talked to the humans. They weren't ever supposed to interact with the people that were being taken. From my experience, I can't speak for anyone else, but from what I saw and from what happened to me. So yes, to answer your question, it was generally all sort of a telepathy thing.
In the information you sent us, I read something that touched me, and it said that you said, "For as early as I can remember, I have been abducted by non-human alien entities, possibly hundreds of times. I have seen many UAPs, UFOs throughout my lifetime, and suffered emotional and physical ailments due to the things they did to me. I pray that I can utilize my experiences to glorify God, to share the truth, and to help others in any way I can." That's very deep. That, to me, says, this is what I've experienced. I know the pain. I know the suffering. And I want to help you.
Thank you. Yeah, that is exactly the message I want to send across, that I want to make it okay for people to talk about this. I want to share that if someone comes to you and says, I've had this weird stuff happening to me, or these things happen over the course of my life, or this happened to me, I have this memory when I was little, for people to just listen and listen with an open mind and an open heart. And I want to share too with people how I was able to stop it, because I did figure out, for me, how I was able to stop it, and that's worked for many others who I've spoken with as well. And I think it's important to let people know that there's hope and there is a way to get out of this and to stop it from happening.
This show's tag is where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. And I've always had this idea that this is the safe place where people like you and other people who have had other experiences can come and openly talk about it without the fear of ridicule or criticism, because there are so many unknown things that are happening to people out there that they feel as if they have to stay in a closet because no one will believe me. They'll think I'm crazy. They'll think I'm sick. They'll think that I'm just doing this for attention, when in fact they have had a real experience that they cannot understand. So tell me, how do you stop this from happening? What did you do to get your life back in order?
Yes, well, thank you for saying that, and thank you for having a safe place for people to talk.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, I think it's just so important. There just aren't enough places for people to talk about things like this, and to know that they'll be listened to and heard, and that it is safe. I was when I was around 18 years old. My roommates and I found a church, and I became a Christian. And this was something very new to me, and it was very exciting to me because I finally found a place where I felt a love and a level of just acceptance and protection beyond anything I could have ever imagined.
Unconditional love.
Unconditional love. And while I was in that part of my life and believing and living that life, these entities stopped visiting me. They stopped taking me. They stopped harassing me. But I fell away from that faith. I got married to someone who was not a man of faith and did not accept my faith, and so I was just used to doing what I was told. I had been conditioned and groomed by these entities from the time I was a very small child.
Yeah.
And so following orders was something I was comfortable with. And so I fell away, and it started again. But I never forgot that. And later in life, many years, a few decades later, I found my way back to that faith, and I realized there's a hierarchy among these entities. And there's one who is at the top of that hierarchy, and that's Jesus. That is God. That is our creator. And when I called on him,
He was there.
He was there.
Yeah.
And they left. And they left me alone. And they kept trying to come back and trying again, and I kept calling on Jesus, and every time without fail, and smiling as I say this instead of crying, but I'm crying in a good way, it stopped. And I was just over the moon. It was one of the greatest things I could have. It was answered prayers. And it I found my way back to my faith after I had a near-death experience, which was another amazing, miraculous experience that happened in my life, that I felt just love and peace that we don't have anything like it here. There's just no way to describe it.
My goodness.
And yeah, I had lost my way, but he never left me. He was right there waiting.
It sounds like your life is a living testament to the fight of good and evil that so many of us have read about in biblical times, where, you had God versus Satan, Jesus versus
Right.
Satan. And it seems that you were in the middle of a tug of war until that you decided, hey, I don't want these entities anymore. I don't want to have my life in turmoil anymore. And when you went back to your faith, Jesus, God, that they had the power, they put that power in you, and the entities knew it, and they just left you alone.
Exactly, exactly. And it's a battle that never stopped. And it's a battle that's being fought by so many, and that so many humans, people are stuck in the middle of, that are stuck in that tug of war. And that's one of the most important things that I want to share, is that that tug of war doesn't, that's always going to be out there. That's going to be happening, but we don't have to be pulled by the dark side, by the fallen ones
Yeah.
in this anymore. That we have a savior who is on our side and is willing to fight for us. I didn't have to fight anymore. And that was the most amazing part.
Are you okay, dear?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. You mentioned 2 dates in your book, Roswell in 1947, and a lot, I'm sure that 95% of everybody listening to this broadcast tonight on Classic 1220 is well aware of what the Roswell event of 1947 is. But
Yes.
you also talk about the Grenada Treaty. What is that
Yes.
about?
Yes. Yeah, I mentioned those 2 dates because, yes, a lot of people are familiar with Roswell, and it kind of sets up the fact that our government has known about this for a very long time. And suddenly, recently, they're admitting that they've known about this for a very long time. And the Grenada Treaty is another one of those shadowy events like Roswell, where supposedly there was an agreement made between the powers that be, whether it be our government or a shadowy offshoot of our government or a secret group or agency, that gave these entities permission to take humans and to take animals and to experiment on them and to abduct them and to do what they would with them. And I think it's really important to share that, this is our government, the people, the powers that be, the leaders, those in charge and in control, have known about this for a long time and have created this false stigma that people like me are crazy when they've been involved in it all along.
You and I have to take a very fast break here, so please stand by. When we come back, let's continue this interesting and touching story. It almost seems, Karin, that the government is in bed with Satan.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
It sure does. We'll talk more on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And you're listening to us right here on Classic 1220, streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. My name is Rob McConnell, and if you'd like to send us an email, tell us what you think about Karin's story. Tell me, have you had an experience of abduction? Are you looking for help? Yes, there is a solution, and we'll help you find it. Just email xzone@classic1220.ca. Don't go away.
Gonna make a change for once in my life. It's gonna feel real good. Gonna make a difference. Gonna make it right. As I turn up the collar on my favorite winter coat, this wind is blowing my mind. I see the kids in the street with not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their need? A son's disregard, a broken bottle top, and a one-man soul.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada on Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. My guest this hour is Karin Wilkinson, and Karin is the author of Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. Her website, KarinWilkinsonAuthor.com, and she is a UFO abductee survivor and researcher who wants to help those who have had experiences like hers, who feel as if they need to hide it. They need to keep it away from those who love them, who they believe will not understand the experience. Well, Karin says you're not alone. It is happening. And Karin, thank you for joining us again. We were talking before we went to the break about the Granada Treaty. What is that again?
So the Granada Treaty was a treaty that there's still a lot of question around that, and documentation that's been released about it is very, very redacted, of course. But that treaty was a treaty made by members of our country, whether it was the government directly or an offshoot of the government. This is where groups like the Majestic 12 come into play, for those who might be familiar with that group, which was a group of people put in place to work with and deal with things like the Roswell incident. And they with this treaty, supposedly gave permission for these entities to take people and experiment on them, abduct them, to experiment on animals, abduct them, things that we now see today as cattle mutilations.
Right.
Other animals and people have even been found in that same circumstance, drained of blood, certain organs and body parts and things missing. And so that permission was given to them to do these things by someone.
You share what you call as a near-death experience in your book. What happened, and how does this tie into your book?
Sure. Yeah, when I was having one of the many surgeries that I've had to kind of reconstruct and hold my body together for all kinds of anomalous bone issues and things that I've had, I was in an operating room waiting to be operated on, but I wasn't hooked up to any machines or anything yet. I just had 2 IV ports in my arm, but I was already in the actual operating room. There were a couple of nurses walking around just, doing the things that they do to get ready for the surgery, and my doctor was in another room getting things ready. And an anesthesiologist walked in and leaned over me. She had a white lab coat on with a breast pocket full of syringes. She pulled one of those syringes out, pushed it into my IV port, and just turned and walked away. Didn't ask me how that made me feel, if I was okay, and it was supposed to have been a sedative, as far as I knew. She gave me a paralytic and walked away from me. And I know they use paralytics in surgery, but that's when you're hooked up to machines that are breathing for you, and you have people watching you. And that type of thing. I wasn't hooked up to anything yet. I was alone. And I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. My body felt like it was made out of cement. I couldn't gesture to anyone. I couldn't breathe. I suffocated. I was suffocating to death on the table. And as I lay there dying, I heard a voice in my head as clear as day saying, "It's okay. You can let go now. I'm with you." And I just, in the blink of an eye, was out of my body, and I felt the most incredible, amazing love and peace. There are not words to describe it. We don't have anything like it here. It was beyond belief, and I could see and hear everything going on in the operating room and in the surrounding rooms. The walls didn't prevent me from seeing. I could see what my doctor was doing. And I was still me. I still had my personality. That was the most amazing part to me. I had no fear. I just had peace. And I watched them when they realized that I was lying there dead on the table. I watched them try to bag me to resuscitate me. I watched the process of them finally intubating me. And then once they got me breathing again, it ended. just as quickly as it began, and I was, back in my body and asleep, and they went on with the surgery. But it was just the actual process that led up to that was so just so terrifying that I had to go through PTSD therapy,
Oh my God.
and as I mentioned earlier, to get through it. And that's what helped me to actually be able to then deal with this lifetime of these heinous abductions.
I've got two questions to ask you. I've had a number of surgeries myself, and one of the first things that they've all was done was hooked me up to a monitoring system for my oxygen levels and as well as my cardio levels.
Yes.
Then, and there has always been somebody in the OR with me. I find it amazing that you were left alone in an operating room all
Right.
by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It was almost as if it was planned.
Well, that was my next question. The person who injected you, were they actually a member of the hospital staff, number one? And if
Right.
they weren't, how could they do what they did to you without any repercussions?
Yeah. I don't know. And we couldn't, I never saw her again.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't find her name in any of the paperwork. I contacted probably 100 lawyers trying to get help.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want anything from the hospital. I just wanted someone to help me pay for therapy because it was very expensive. And no one would touch it. No one would touch it.
Unbelievable.
I have folders and folders and folders of paperwork about this, and none of it makes any sense.
Something else that that a lot of people say is that these aliens are well-being, benevolent space brothers who wish to bring light and enlightenment to humanity. Now, with all you've gone through, God bless you for what you've gone through, and thank you for sharing this. Do you agree with this opinion?
Thank you for your kind words. No, I absolutely do not agree with your opinion. I don't feel that abducting little children and adults and people against their will is benevolent behavior.
Yeah.
I don't feel that I was raped, I was abused, I was groomed, I was basically trafficked within that, organization,
Right.
if you want to call
Yeah.
it that. And all of that was against my will, and not just me, but the other people that I saw there and that happening to. So that's not benevolent behavior,
Nope.
especially with little children. That's what breaks my heart the most of all.
Why do you think the government is letting this happen? Why do you think they're so hush-hush about it? Why don't they admit it, number one? Number two, help the people that have been affected by this phenomena. And number three, stop it if they've been complicit in a signing of an agreement that would allow a foreign entity, whether it is supernatural or whether it is from somewhere out in the great beyond. Why do they just turn their back and say, not us, don't look this way?
Right. A couple of reasons. A, I think they're in too deep with entities that are way too powerful for them to, not on. So I don't think that they actually have much of a choice as to whether they were to say, we
Right.
want to discontinue this agreement.
Now, Karen, I'm going to ask you to repeat what you just said, because as you were talking, something or someone was trying to interfere with our signal from you.
Oh dear. Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, so if you could repeat what you said
Perfect.
about the government.
Sure. I believe that they are in too deep with entities that are way too powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And if they wanted to get out of this deal or stop it or, end any agreements they'd made, there's no way that they could. They don't have enough power over these entities to do that. These entities are much more powerful and much more advanced than they are. So they're not, you're not dealing on an even playing field
Right.
here.
When,
So
when
I
we,
think,
yeah, when we were getting ready to go on air, you and I were talking about there are times when there seems to be interference or somebody doesn't want you to get your message out there. And I just found it
Yes.
so strange that somebody or something actually tried to disrupt our communication.
Yes. Yeah, it happens so often, and strange things happen, and probably about between 30 and 50% of the interviews I try to do, it
Hmm.
either have to be postponed or aren't able to even go forward. So I'm always grateful when we're actually able to be together and speak. And it's they're not happy that I'm talking. Obviously, there have been attempts on my, life, and there have attempts on my safety, but I am not afraid. I can't be afraid because I know that I'm protected by a higher power, and I know that I'm in this to share this information. It's too important.
Hmm.
It's too important. If they're trying that hard to stop me, then that just makes me work that much harder to share this message and to speak louder and try harder and work harder to share with more people and to reach more people, because obviously I'm doing something right.
What kind of attempts on your life have you had? And I've got about a minute before I have to go to my break.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously with the near death experience, I believe that that was a preemptive uh, attempt to try to keep me from starting this journey, because at that point I was really trying to start dealing with this
Hmm.
and working on this. Um, and then I have had just crazy things where um, just cars pulling out right in front of me, and I don't know how it is divine intervention, but a half a dozen times that I don't even know how I haven't hit these cars.
Wow.
um, and just crazy things like that that make no sense. It 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 just obviously it's I've had health issues. I had a brain tumor out
Okay,
of
we're going to
nowhere.
have to hold it there because we have to go for
Okay.
this hard break. When we come back, I'd like to talk to you about some of the health issues that you've had that you've been able
Okay.
to attribute to the, oh my gosh, I don't know what to call it, the events that you've had in your life, whether they be with the supernatural or with the ETs. Exonation, our guest this hour is Karin Wilkinson, and she's a UFO abductee, researcher, and survivor. Fascinating story. This is the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario on Classic 1220 and around the world on classic1220.ca. We'll be back. Don't go away.
Take a look at yourself and make a change. Na, 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 na.
Swaying room as the music starts. Strangers making the most of the dark. Two by two, their bodies become one. I see you through the smoky air. Can't you feel the
And welcome back to the X Zone. Wow, this is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our studios in St. Catharines on Classic 1220 and around the world on classic1220.ca. My guest this hour is an incredible person, Exonation. Her name is Karin Wilkinson. Her website, KarinWilkinsonAuthor.com. She's the author of a book that tells it as it is. Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. She's a UFO abductee, survivor, and researcher. First of all, Karen, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing these experiences with the Exo Nation tonight, because I am positive, Karen, that there are people listening tonight who will say, wow, it is real. It really happened to me. I wasn't imagining it. How does that make you feel, Karen?
Well, thank you, Rob. No, that, it makes me sad that it's happened to them, but it makes me happy that they can know that they're not alone. And I have a section on my website where people can reach out to me. You can send me a message, and I respond to every message that I receive. It's not always right away because I do get a lot of them, but I do absolutely take the time to get to each and every person, which is why it takes a while sometimes, because I want people to know they can reach out to me, even if they just want to share their story and have someone to just kind of get this out with, and to have someone let them know that it's okay. I believe you. I understand where you are, and it's important to me that you know that there's someone out there who cares. So I just want to let people know that you can reach out to me, and I will get back to you as soon as I can.
Karen, do you believe that that these experiences that you've experienced run in families?
I do. I do believe that there are a couple of components to that. I do believe there's a genetic component, that they're looking for very specific genetic material that is compatible, that they can utilize, which is one of the same reasons why you see cattle mutilations, which I'll bring into that. But once you find, like, I'm an O negative blood type, that's a very compatible blood type. I can give blood to anyone. I can't receive it from anyone else except O negative, but I can give blood to anyone. And the genetic lineage is very important to them, and they reiterated that to me over and over again during my abduction scenarios. And then, obviously they seem to have a much, much longer lifespan than we do. So once you find a compatible genetic specimen, as we're treated, because they really don't treat it as like people, they treat us like specimens or things, then you want to continue that within that family line. You're going to be able to find more, other members of that family who will possibly have that same blood type and the genetics that are as compatible as well. So I believe that's one reason it runs in family lines. And I believe another reason is because of the activities of certain family members, where those family members have given permissions for them to take their family members, whether it be involvement in satanic groups and certain Masonic groups and things like that, that just seem to have some sort of a strange tie-in into this phenomenon.
When you look back on your life and all the experiences that you've had with these entities, what do you believe their true intentions are?
Yeah, that's a good question. I believe that their intentions are to interfere with the human population and to lead people away from the truth by touting themselves as our ancestral seeders or as our benevolent space brothers. That pulls people away from the truth of our actual creator, God.
Right.
And it pulls people away from the truth of who we are and where we came from, and it gives them an opportunity to go back to something that goes back to the Bible, our Christian Bible, to Genesis 3, to the Garden of Eden, when Satan is in the Garden of Eden and he says, God is in the garden with him, and it says, or Jesus, and says, your seed will be at enmity with the seed of the woman, and you will bruise his heel and he will crush your head. That sets up a seed war that is going on still today. And initially that seed war was to try to stop the Savior, Jesus, from being born. But they didn't know what line from the 12 tribes Jesus would come from. So that is when in Genesis 6 it talks about how they fell, how the sons of God, which these are the watcher angels, found the daughters of men beautiful and took for them wives of all that they chose, and had offspring with
Yeah.
them. These were called the Nephilim,
Right.
the mighty men of old, right?
Yeah.
And that's going on still today. It's just a different manner, because in Daniel too, in Daniel, I believe it's chapter 2, it says, that in the last days, in the times before Jesus comes, they'll do this again. They will take them, but they won't cleave to them. They won't have these contracts like they had back in the days of Genesis 6, these marriage contracts. And that's exactly what's happening. They're taking women. They took eggs from me. They take sperm and eggs, ovum from other women and men, and they implanted these embryos into me, and then took them before the end of the first trimester, before my body could reject it. And I write a great deal about that in the book, and it's one of the most heart-wrenching and difficult things that I ever wrote about.
Right.
It's very hard to talk about and very hard to write about, but I believe that there's still in that same seaboard to dilute, to create a modern day Nephilim.
Karin, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm not. The question is not meant to doubt you, so please.
Sure.
Okay. With all that you've had happen to you, have you made any official reports to police, to doctors, to anyone where you could say, well, listen, I'm not crazy. It really did happen. Check this out. I went to this police department. I filed this, this report with this governmental agency. I've asked for hospital records to confirm what I'm saying.
Sure. What would I say to the police? I mean, it's not happening now, so
Right.
there's no way for me to do that now. But when I had the fetuses missing, I was in the hospital. They did D&Cs. They confirmed there was no baby, no heartbeat, and no fetal tissue. But I had been with my OBGYN up to that point, confirming these pregnancies, confirming that baby was there. And I told them in the hospital, you can talk to my doctor, this baby was there.
Right. And what did they say?
But they don't do anything.
Okay, so if you've got proof that you were pregnant, you have this encounter of an ungodly type, your fetus is removed, you have proof that the hospital says, sorry, there's nothing there.
Right.
To me, that would be a very strong case of somebody missing the ball and raising alarms all over the place.
Well, this has been reported by the government in a report that they call anomalous acute and subacute effects on human and biological tissues. And they actually report, our government, that these missing pregnancies are a result of exposure to UAPs and non-human entities. So they know what's going on, but there's nothing for me to do about it.
All right, if they know this is going on, Karin, why all this big hubbub about the congressional hearings if it's already a known and established fact?
That's a really good question. I don't, there's all these reports out there that anyone can look that report up. It came out the report was released in 2022, so it wasn't very long ago. And, Tucker Carlson, I think, interviewed Gary Nolan in August of 2020, and they talked about different anomalous injuries like this that have been reported. And, there just isn't any interest in it, it doesn't seem.
Well,
but
yeah,
I've talked
I
to
find
so many women in the same position.
I find it really funny because everybody in the UFO community is screaming for a smoking gun. And they have one and they're not using it.
No. But I don't have the baby. I don't have the fetal tissue.
But you do have the
and
report.
They're going to say, your body, well, you lost that baby and you didn't realize it.
But how many times did this happen to you?
Well, I have 3 confirmed pregnancies that happened, and then many others because I stopped going to the OBGYN until I got to a certain point because it was just too heartbreaking.
I understand that, and my heart goes to you. It really does.
Thank you.
But when the government says, "Oh yeah, we know it's you you were giving us the title of an article or something that was issued by the government that basically said, yeah, we know that this is happening as a result of interaction with a UAP. If the government already has that information, how come MUFON and other organizations that claim to be the heroes and the knights in shining armor for the UFO community don't take this information and run with it?
Yeah, MUFON was actually involved in putting the list of 77, I think it was, effects, physical and psychological effects together for that report.
So if MUFON already gave this information to the U.S. government, the U.S. government has already read it and issued it, something doesn't make sense here.
No, none of it makes sense, does it?
No.
None of it makes sense. And there's always an excuse. There's always and there are a lot of people out there who will approach someone like me, and I have met so many women who have gone through this, Rob, so many, and they say, you are having a psychotic delusion. This never happened. And they leave it right there. And that's the end of it.
Speaking about the end of it, our time is coming up very short. We have about a minute left. First of all, Karin, thank you so much. Let our listeners know how they can find out more about you and where they can get a copy of your book.
Oh, thank you so much, Rob. Yeah, I wish we had more time. The book is available exclusively right now at lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLA.net. And you can find that link on my website, which is KarinWilkinsonAuthor.com, which I have given you for the show notes. And you can find me on Facebook at Karin Wilkinson, just my name, Karin with an I, Wilkinson with eyes. So you can find me there, and all the links will be there as well. And, I just encourage anyone, if you just need to talk or want to share your story, just please reach out to me. I'm not a therapist and nothing like that. I'm just a fellow experiencer who wants to be there and share in this and just offer comfort if I can.
Karin, we'll have to get you back on in the future because we do have still so much to talk about. But until then, thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. And X Zone Nation, that's it for me for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. So from everyone here at the X Zone to everyone out there, take care of yourselves, be careful, and always remember to keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.